one of the things I was struck by in watching this play is exactly the idea that who are the characters? The characters are America. I mean, if you think about it, you've got someone looking for love, you've got a soldier coming home from Iraq, you've got a terrified teacher, and then the numbers come out, I think the number that struck me the most is the number of violent incidents where people are being harmed. And I'm wondering, Emily and Adrian, if in your work there is just this consciousness of the fact that more people are actually resorting. I mean, you know, that we really got to push back against this instinct to use violence. Like if you can feel that and how it shows up.
Crime is going down, and violent crimes are going down. There are less murders this year than there was last year. There are less rapes this year than last year. And you have to wonder, we're in a recession and people are unemployed. How can that happen? Our jail populations are way down. They were traditionally around 19 to 20,000 people in LA County, and right now they're at 15. We've closed a jail down, and we were only at a 10%. They were serving their time at about 10%, and now they're serving 40 to 50% of their time. So I think there's a lot going out there with programs. Just that, like right now, what's in the news right now is all the stuff about bullying in the school, and you know, before there was a lot of stuff about domestic violence and then child abuse. And first comes the awareness, and then comes all those people that react and all the programs that there. And I really think that all those programs, all those little programs, and everybody that's helping is making the difference. And that's why here we are in the worst time, at least in my lifetime, right? As far as unemployment and all the stuff that's going on with the banks and you know all that stuff, and the crime's not up. That's so cool, you know. So I think positive stuff is happening. You know?
Well, I heard alarming numbers, but you're saying, you know, Emily, what do you?
I'm talking about LA County.
Oh yeah,
I
no.
know
Oh yeah.
the sheriff has some great programs out there, all based on education. He feels everyone in jail ought to be educated, and they all need to be busy, not just sitting in their bunks doing nothing. So he's trying. He has education-based incarceration. I have a book if you want to read about it. But he's very interested in making sure that the inmates are kept busy and they're kept learning.
Well, and I think we talk a lot with youth or anyone when we're training them in conflict resolution skills. And part of what we talk about is to think about how do you feel both physically and emotionally when you're in a situation of conflict. And a lot of times we're very upset, or our physical bodies, we might be getting really tense, and we just react on how we're feeling. And with young people, a lot of times, if they're in situations where they're in a conflict with someone or they're being approached in a violent way, they feel that the only way to gain respect is to respond in kind. So some of the things we try to talk about in training is the need to, rather than just react, to step back and to think through what actually is the best way to go about and handle this situation. And that takes being able to regulate yourself and being able to calm yourself down enough so that you can move forward. And I think that that's a skill that needs to be really brought out a lot more in order to bring down violence occurring. And the other thing is, I think a lot of times when we think of violence, we're only thinking about it in a physical way, in a direct physical way. But one of my favorite theorists, Johann Galtung, actually defines violence pretty much as anything that keeps someone from reaching their full potential. So that would include not just physical acts, but even I think the trailer did a really good job of showing the way that people communicate with one another can often be a violent act. And so when you were talking about what is the most important thing for nonviolent conflict resolution, I think it really does come back to listening and being able to communicate with one another in ways where we're not judging one another, but we're really trying to understand one another. So I'm not sure that quite answers the question, but I think it goes to how do we move away from a violent society.
One of the things that we wanted to get into was how the arts, how projects like this can educate the public on this nonviolent conflict resolution. There are a lot of artists in this room, because I don't think most of the cast of what we saw have left. If you have a thought about that, if things are springing to mind, if anyone in the audience wants to share, Tasha, in your travels on that biodiesel bus, did you see it working, and how?
We did. You know, we would stop at buffets and truck stops and all sorts of, you know, community centers and talk to people in churches. And Stacey, in a lot of ways, you know, prophesied, because people were speaking from the play. And there's this beautiful scene between Stacey and Valentino where they get emotional because they're speaking words from the play. They feel this way. They're affected. You know, guys who you wouldn't really think would be for peace and this kind of whamsy-whamsy pie in the sky, myself included, like, really see another way. And that's what it's about. Like, we're not ever going to have a world that's free of conflict. It's about how we deal with it. It's about how we resolve it. Not just, in my own life, it's like, I want to get to a place, whether you're for Obama or not, it doesn't really matter, but you know, in the debates, I really found he was so presidential because he responded instead of reacted, like a lot of politicians, where, you know, stuff is coming at you and coming at you and coming at you, and instead of catching it and throwing it back, you know, just really holding your ground. And to me, that was like, oh, that's a leader, that's presidential. That you don't just react to what's being thrown at you, but you respond in a dignified manner. And that's kind of what I try to embody in my own life, and then hopefully I can pass that on to my children and be an example for others.
Emily, when I think of your work, I think of maybe some role play exercises, which is sort of the beginning of improvisation, which you get out into theater. Tell me what kind of role that plays, for lack of better words. Just the arts and some sort of cultural exchange in what you're trying to do.
It definitely plays a huge role. For the training to really be effective, it has to be really interactive, and especially when you're training people to lead other people in processes so that they can resolve their conflicts, you have to do a lot of role playing. Just one aside really quickly, a lot of times it's hard for people to be able to get to where they need to be in order to resolve a conflict on their own, so it's really important to have people who they can reach out to, such as mediators or facilitators, in order to help them resolve their conflicts. So we'd use a lot of role playing to train both young people and adults in those skills. And also, our organization is also looking into using art really as a way to train in conflict resolution. We're just kind of starting that, but I know that's some research that's been done in the field and other organizations as well. But we have these art start cards, for example, that we've created where it gives you an idea of a variety of different art techniques, more visual style art, and also conflict resolution themes and how you can try and combine them. And we hold an art show. We started our first one last year in a poetry contest, because I think creative expression is a really good place for people to think about these issues and to really learn more about them.
I'll go to the end. I've heard from you in a minute. Terry, do you, you've gone from being a performer, and I know you're still a performer, and being active in this campaign. What springs to mind when we start thinking about using arts to teach this?
Yeah, well, I mentioned before, there's so many programs across the country that are doing extraordinary work, and many of them are art-based, many of them. There is a program in inner city Oakland called Art Esteem, where they bring kids who are in a really tough urban environment into a situation, and they do artwork, they do paintings, and they draw themselves as a superhero. And then they make the artwork, and they have a display of the artwork, and they make greeting cards of their superheroes. And they sell them to support the art projects that they're doing. There's also, in Kentucky, a Shakespeare Behind Bars program where the inmates who are only inmates who are well-behaved and are doing what they're supposed to do are allowed to participate, and they put on Shakespeare plays. There are videos of these Shakespeare plays. And they put on their Shakespeare plays. The recidivism rate for these guys who are in the plays is like dropped to nothing. It's their self-esteem, their power, their empowerment of being in theater is something completely different than a normal prison experience, right? There's also a window between worlds, a place for battered women, and battered women come in and they're being given art projects to work through some of the stuff that they've experienced. It's extremely empowering to release it in a way that's, not a clinical psychological approach, but it has a huge effect. So there's many ways that the arts are affecting the programs that are doing a lot of the conflict resolution and violence amelioration and making things better for these people.
Inside the facilities, arts a part of this? I mean, industry, you're making products.
Yeah, can I address something? When we were on
Sure.
the bus, something with Tasha, when we were on the bus, before we left for the bus, we were given very simple steps of nonviolent communication that were steps. It was, okay, first you do observation, then you share your feelings, then you, observation, feeling, needs request. So you talk about what you're missing, what you're needing at the moment, and then you ask for feedback. I'm sorry, it's been a while. So we were given this protocol on how to do it, and it's funny because there was one little element that it takes a while to grasp. If you don't do it with an intention to connect with somebody, if you don't do it with genuine desire to resolve a conflict, it ends up being very structured. So you'll end up saying, well, I'm feeling, or I'm needing you to do this, and it's not, and so it gets run. So, right? So what we learned on the bus was a lot of that you learn this kind of structured way of doing something, and then what you really come down to, with the structure doesn't matter. What really matters is a desire to want to know what's going on here. So it doesn't even matter the structure anymore. Do you know, right? Do you find that to be true?
Really. It really became about the intention.
It became all about the intention of wanting to connect. They talk about that heartfelt connection, but that's all it's about. I want to connect with you. So let's figure out a way. We're disconnected. We're disconnected right now. Right? That's all. Read it.
Well, we'd like to thank all of you for being here. We'd like to thank the panelists for coming. Here in the Crawford Family Forum, we're all about the intention to connect. So please come back. Keep an eye on our schedule. And once again, I'll close by saying Happy Human Rights Day. Thank you very much.